to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. Big show. I have my friend and co-author in my second book, A Well-Designed Business, the Power Talk Friday experts, with me today, Shauna Lynn Simon. Shauna Lynn is an award-winning home staging industry expert and business strategist. She is fiercely committed to guiding aspiring entrepreneurs to achieve success in all facets of their business. Dedicated to creating educational content that builds successful relationships among like-minded business professionals, Shauna Lynn partners with CEOs, executives, and solopreneurs to grow their personal and professional brands one-to-one, providing real-world insights and actionable tips for building the business of their dreams. A veteran of education and inspiring entrepreneurs from all industries, she has built a thriving home staging and design business, voted number one in her local region, and she oversees a remarkable team of home staging and design professionals. With a former career as an analyst, Shauna Lynn designed a comprehensive and systematic program for teaching the technical and the business side of the home staging world, and she offers core and continuing education for home staging professionals through Style, Listed, and Sold, the SLS Academy. This lady has an awesome energy, and she is an exceptional businesswoman. Once you listen to the show and you find that you love her as much as I do, please go listen to her other 3 episodes on the podcasts, number 76, 84, and 102. In these episodes, she talks about how home staging is different to interior design and the things that you need to know about those differences. And she also talks about how to plan and host a consumer event. Today, Shauna Lynn is going to talk with us about how to be memorable to your clients. The truth is, clients work with us and then forget us. Not because we did a bad job, not because we did an okay job. Sometimes we do an exceptional job, but sometimes simply because we were not personally memorable. Our company was not personally memorable. I know it's heartbreaking, but it's true. I have to say, as hard as we've worked at WindowWorks all these years to do everything right, I literally have had this situation where I'll run into a past customer at the grocery store. How you doing? What's going on? What's new? Oh, blah, blah, blah. We sold the house and now we live in a townhouse. And I'm like looking at her like, well, what happened to calling us, lady? You know what I'm saying? So it happens, okay? No matter how hard we work and what we do. But the way around that is to work on being memorable. Okay, so listen in as Shauna Lynn describes the various ways that you can make yourself memorable so that your clients only think of you when they need interior design services or window treatment services. One company that I know that has this lockdown is Kirsch. Kirsch is known in the industry for more than 100 years of quality drapery hardware, from their superfine track and arch-to-track rods all the way to their new collection, the motorized Breeza. Part of what makes Kirsch memorable is that they are always innovating. They are steeped in tradition with years of experience, yet they are always reinventing the product lines, keeping them fresh, in style, and up to date. See for yourself. Go to Kirsch.com, and when you're there, ask them to connect you with a local distributor. Kirsch, KIRSCH.com. Let them know I sent you, would you? All right, let's meet Shauna Lynn. Hi, Shauna Lynn. Thanks so much for coming back on A Well-Designed Business today.
LuAnn, I am thrilled to be back. How are you?
I'm great. And I am so excited to do this with you too. You are one of my favorite people that I have met in connection with this podcast. You truly are. From the day I first met you, when we did our first interview, it's almost 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was back in the first season. Yeah.
It was. I just, there is a thing where when I have a conversation with somebody and I'm like, oh, that lady's different. And that was you. And of course, since then, you did 2 or 3 other podcasts, and then you were one of the co-authors in my book, and you were a speaker at LuAnn Live. So, when I find my people, I keep them close.
Well, at that time, you hadn't even met me in person. So you didn't even know. I mean, when you said, like, I know this person's a little different, you didn't know the half of it, I think, at that point.
No, I just knew that you were a truly smart, intentional entrepreneur. That's what I got when I first met you. It was like, you asked this lady a question, she knows the answer. It was just a straight line of information, and that always impresses me so much. And I just, you're right. I think the first time we met in person was at LuAnn Live, wasn't it?
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
Yes.
We had done some video calls prior to that, I think.
Right.
But yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think I even realized that myself.
I know. Well, the funny thing is that's the only time we've ever seen each other, and we feel like we're really super connected. So yeah, definitely. Because we are.
I love that.
Yes.
Today's technology, it opens up so many doors, doesn't it?
It does. So today, Shauna Lynn, I love that you're here to talk to us about one of the things that you have really so successfully done for your own business is, making yourself stand out and differentiated in a way that is so truly unique to you. And the result of that is that, number one, I'm just going to say every single time I speak to you, you are in your joy. You're in your happy spot. You're just working and doing what you always comes off to me that you are meant to do. And I think what happens is because you've come to a spot where you're so clear on who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, that it gives you that inner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you've done this, and now you're going to teach us a little bit about how to do it and how we use this strength and this skill to attract our ideal clients, right?
I think you just nailed it. I mean, podcast interview over. I mean, I think that.
Well, now you got to teach us how, though.
Right.
You're not getting off
There's
that easy.
Part of it, right. But you're absolutely right, though. It's all about, really understanding who you are. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have, because we're all a work in progress, right? Mm-hmm. I mean,
yes.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, me either. As old as I am, I'm not done.
Exactly.
Still learning, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, no, I think it's really important to really understand who you are, both personally and professionally. And I think that's also the other challenge. And I know we talked about this actually, I think a little bit in my very first interview with you, that when I first started, I don't know how far I got into it, but when I first started my business, I had this image of what a business person was and what an entrepreneur was. And I'd been working in the corporate world. So it wasn't as though I was coming to business from, like more of like a skilled trade or something, like I wasn't changing dramatically. But I now own a business. I'm now an entrepreneur. What does an entrepreneur look like? And so one thing that you know about me is that I have pink hair.
Right.
And what I don't think I mentioned in our first interview, which might surprise you, is when I decided to launch my business, I knew I needed some headshots done. So I took the pink out of my hair to get those headshots done.
Oh.
I didn't think it would be well received for my audience, for people on the internet, for on my business card, even showing up at people's houses. They're thinking, what the heck is this crazy person with pink hair doing here? How can I take her seriously? And so ironically, I took the pink out of my hair. But what happened was I didn't feel like myself. I felt like a complete imposter. And so it lasted like a couple months. It did not last long at all. I'm like, put it back in. I need to be myself again, because that's just always been something that sort of defines me. Now, obviously, I'm not just how I look, but that was something that I felt that I needed to own that part of who I was, because trying to be someone that I wasn't for the purpose of someone else was just going to hurt my business in the end. So, and I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, is like you really need to be who you are and who you're comfortable being.
You know what's funny about that? Way back also in the first year of the podcast, I remember interviewing Kim Cutable. And I don't know if you know who she is, Shauna Lynn, but she is a business coach. She works with creatives. She's also a branding expert. She has a book out, which I will put in the show notes. I think it's Branding and Design. I think that's what it's called. But what I remember, interestingly, she was talking about being you, coming to everything that you do as who you authentically are, right? And I almost hate saying the word authentically anymore now. Doesn't it seem so blah, like so cliche? But you know what I always say too? Something's a cliche because it's always true, right? So
exactly.
It's sort of like we got to come up with a new word. But until then, but the thing is, I remember learning with her because we were talking about this, quote unquote, how you show up to do your work. And I remember being naive enough at the point to say, well, right, but I mean, you still have to be presentable and you still have to be professional. So you're not going to show up in jeans and flip-flops and a white t-shirt to your design clients. And
I remember that interview.
Do you?
Yes.
Right? And do you
Yes,
remember her saying,
do.
well, LuAnn, unless that's who you are,
Yes,
right?
I remember that. Yes.
And I remember thinking, oh, and the thing was, I think the lesson for me was, to show up in flip-flops and jeans and a white t-shirt would feel like I'm lazy and I couldn't be bothered to get dressed for you. But I was processing it from my perspective. And what she was saying is that if that's really who you are, and of course we know designers, they could be in jeans and a t-shirt and white flip-flops and still look amazing. I would look like I rolled out of bed. I would not look like that stylish person. But she said, if that's who a designer is, then the client that feels and thinks and relates to that is going to resonate with that. And so you're saying that it's so interesting that you had the same lesson, but yours was a real life lesson. You thought you had to dye your hair away from who you were, right?
Well, yeah. And I think that, what I realized was the people that I was going to be attracting weren't necessarily going to be the wrong clients for me. Right. But if they're not going to accept my pink hair, we might not work so well together anyway. There's going to be other areas where we might not mesh as well. So that was something that, like going back to the t-shirt and jeans and flip-flops, you got to know your audience as well. And you just said, that's going to resonate with certain people. But if you walk into, I remember working in a luxury listing and having a woman come over. She was going to quote on doing some beautiful planters throughout the house. And she showed up in a hoodie, jeans, and flip-flops, and the client was livid. She couldn't believe that someone would show up so disrespectfully because this was a high-end home. Right. And she felt like, I don't care if you dress like that on a daily basis, don't show up to my home like that. So, and that's fine for both people.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that florist did not get the job because she didn't know her audience. But maybe she didn't want it. Maybe that's not who she wants to work with. Maybe she'd rather work in less luxury, So
and that's what it is, right? It's like, just understand that when you do make a statement in whatever way, that it's a statement. That's the point of it,
right?
And not everyone is going to like it. So you have to own the fact. You can't. That florist can't show up that way and then be, well, that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Yes. That's the whole point. The point is that you got to live in your own skin. And
exactly. Yeah. And so once I started embracing that part of it, I thought, okay, obviously this is a part of who I am. I decided that instead of making it something that people would just kind of talk about on the side, I wanted to make it something that I was encouraging people to talk about. I wanted to really make it a part of who I was. So that's one of the reasons why my company's been branded with the color pink. So you will never see me not wearing something pink.
Right.
So, and it's a bit of a subliminal thing. So the clipboard that I use for all of my appointments is pink. I actually wear a little pink tool belt for all of my appointments as well. It has my measuring tape, and I put my phone in there, my pens in there, and keeps my hands nice and free because I like to talk with my hands. I think you know what I'm talking about. Talk with my hands, and so keeps my hands nice and free to be able to, I like to touch things. I like to be able to, feel things. So I've got this cute little pink tool belt. And so the real estate agents that I work with, and so for anyone who's not familiar with my business, I do both home staging and design. So I work a lot with real estate agents with the home staging side. So these real estate agents will actually tell their clients, oh, you're going to love her. She's going to show up. She's going to be wearing her pink tool belt. It's going to be super awesome. You're going to love it. And so everyone on my staging team, now that I've grown a staging team, I'm not going to make them all dye their hair pink. but they do all wear a pink tool belt.
Yes.
Right. So it's become a part of essentially our branding. And so everything's been mixed in with a little bit of pink. Now, here's the thing. You can't just decide, oh, I'm going to be all about pink and not have an actual company behind it.
Right.
You know, there's got to be a lot of other things to it. But
right.
You know, one of the reasons why I incorporated pink was it's a fun color. And we're a fun company. We're very structured. We're very passionate, but we're also a lot of fun. And we're very, you know, and that's where we've definitely built our reputation as well, where people, they see me and it all of a sudden becomes a less intimidating process to them, whatever it is that we're going to go through together, because they see the pink hair and immediately they're like, all right, this girl's got some funk to her, you know? So we're going to get along just fine.
It's the truth. And the thing is, what I know too, even for this florist and this other person that she was working for who was upset, there comes, like, I think there's a difference in it strikes me as there's a difference in walking into that place and being in flip-flops and a hoodie and it not being a thing. You see, it's like, in other words, you're not walking around with your pink hair and your, you know, pink thing because you're immature and you just, you know, are doing you. If this is a statement, this is something you owned. It's something that you've thought about. And I do think that you have to have the confidence first to do the work. Like you said, like the whole point of what the conversation today is to know who you are. So my question is that florist really the girl in flip-flops and a hoodie, or was she running late that day, or was she feeling a little lazy that day, or was something amiss? And because if she really is the flip-flop and girl hoodie, to your point, it has to be expressed as this is an intention on my part, not like I just couldn't be bothered on my part. See there, that's the crux of it, right?
It's about how you own it. Exactly. Exactly. And like you said, you've got to know. You got to really do some soul searching and some inner thinking about who you actually are. And I know that I meet a lot of people throughout the day, every day, who are at varying levels of that. There are some people that, you know, I meet them, they're like 18 years old, and man, do they just have it together. They know exactly who they are, what they'll do, what they won't do. They know where their line is being drawn, and they own every inch of that. And so they're able to express themselves in such a way. If they were to start a business tomorrow, they'd be incredibly successful because they'd have a purpose behind it. Whereas I meet other people that might be even later in life, and they're still trying to figure out, you know, one day they've got this opinion, the next day they've got another opinion, and that's part of the challenge. So I think that what I find most entrepreneurs doing, and of course I work with a lot of home stagers and interior designers, so I work with a lot of like the creatives. I work with other entrepreneur professionals in other industries as well, but those are definitely the main ones. And so I get the same thing from them every time. Well, I'm a creative. We've talked about this. Yeah. Well, I'm a creative. You know, this is what I am. Well, what does that mean to you, though? You know, they don't really know exactly who they are and what it is that they represent. And sometimes it just takes that diving a little bit deeper. But if I say to you, what are you? Well, I'm a home stager. I'm going to need more than that. Right. You know, just being a home stager isn't enough. So what I found when I was first starting in this business was I would show up to a client's house and I would say to them, have you ever listed a house for sale before? And if they said yes, I would ask them if they'd ever worked with a home stager previously. And this is going back, you know, about a dozen years or so, where home staging was not as popular in my area as it is today, you know. So it wasn't uncommon for people to say, oh, I've never even heard of home staging. But every once in a while I would get someone that would say, oh, actually, I have hired a home stager. So because it's such a new industry at that time, you would think someone would really remember that experience, right?
Right, and call them again.
Right. No, they'd say to me, well, I don't remember what her name was. I don't remember what she looked like. I don't remember her company. And, you know, so I would say, well, did she do a report for you? You know, because we all work a little bit different. Here's how I work. And I don't remember what she did. And that to me was to my benefit. Yes. But it resonated with me that I never want to walk out of one of these appointments and not have someone remember who I am. And if they don't remember my name, because I get it, Shauna Lynn can be a bit of a mouthful sometimes. I get it. And they might right. that girl with the double name, but she had pink hair. So that's where I was like, you know, I'm going to make sure that they definitely remember who I am, and they're going to remember something about me. So I'm not saying you have to go out and dye your hair pink or blue or green or any other color of the rainbow, but find something that's going to make you memorable. And that means, and I know that like Nicole talks about branding all the time, about, making sure that you're owning every part of your image.
Right.
You've got to have those promotional materials. You've got to have your business card or your brochures or your postcards or whatever it is you're going to have. But there's other ways to brand yourself and get your message across as to who you are, and make sure they're going to remember you by some sort of leave behind or something that you've done, something that you've said. It doesn't always have to be a physical feature necessarily, but make sure they remember you. So I have one friend of mine, for example, she's known for her turn of phrase. She has the funniest sayings, like, those people who are like, my grandma always said this, she's got them all. She's so people don't necessarily remember her name, but they're going to remember her, like, oh, that girl, they might remember what she looks like, but she said this about this, and they're going to remember the things that they say. It's, the Maya Angelou, right?
Right.
People won't remember what you did. They won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Right.
So you got to find a way to connect with these people in a way that's going to be memorable for them. For me, it tends, like I said, there's definitely the pink hair, but then when I show up, I'm going to be fun with them, and I'm going to make sure they have a fabulous experience. So I actually worked with a real estate agent. I can't, and LuAnn, I think you're like me. I can't not coach.
Sometimes I ask, can I share my opinion with you first?
Because I was having lunch with him as let's figure out how we can support each other's businesses, one of those casual type things. And we get through things. And it's like pulling teeth trying to understand how I can support his business. I said, well, what's your ideal client? Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, what kind of agent do you consider yourself? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a real estate agent. Well, what do you do that makes you different? Why do your clients hire you? I don't know. I'm a real estate agent. I mean, we don't really do much different. We're all basically the same. And I'm shaking my head. I'm like, and so yeah, may I? I just need to,
Can I share a few thoughts with you?
Right? But I said, you're not a dime a dozen. You got to be one in a million, right? So we got to figure out what it is about it. So we started diving a little bit deeper, and talking about, okay, the last client that you worked with, describe them to me. And then let's go to the client before that, describe them to me. And we literally started to pick apart who his clients were and different attributes that they had. Well, it turns out they're all families, for starters. He's a father of 2 young kids, and he connected with them on that level. So he said, so that's a part of what you want to be owning in your marketing then. You're the family guy. It doesn't mean you're not going to work with, the millennials who haven't started their family yet, but it does mean that you're going to be honing in on a certain clientele that you're going to resonate. It's going to be easier for you, because probably when you're going out to those listing appointments with those clients that are not families, you're not nailing it as well because you can't find the same common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the whole point of this, is you got to find that common ground. You got to find what it is that makes you who you are and the best person for them. And I mean, it can be for the person, the company, whatever, but either way, you've got to figure out what that is. So I always tell people, think about your own personalities. I mean, I'm a crazy cat person. Of course, I love people who have cats. Doesn't mean that one of my ideal clients owns a cat, but hey, it's not a bad place to start, right? But I recommend actually, honestly, writing down all of these things. Everything that describes you, whether you think it's relevant or not, write it down and start figuring out the type of company that you want to be. So you might be someone who's super passionate. I love cats, but what I'm really passionate about is helping the local animal shelters and ending animal cruelty. So maybe that's something that my business aligns itself with in a professional way, and I mean, these are just a ton of different ideas basically, but the point is that the more you figure out who you are, the more you can figure out what kind of company you want. The more you figure out what kind of company you want and you're going to build, the easier it is to find the person you're going to work with.
Well, the thing about, I love that what you're talking about there is because ultimately what is unique about this man is that he has a family, he has a wife and children, and that he connects with potential clients who are buying homes that have families too. And the thing about it is that no one would say he is unique because he has a wife and kids. And that is the thing, that when I talk with designers in real life at events, they're like, well, I don't really have anything that makes me different from somebody else. And this is the fine line. It's not so much that what you're going to ultimately come up with is pink hair, something that,
Right.
nobody else really has. You know what I'm saying? Like, very few people have that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But to your point with this friend, this colleague, is that it's not that no other realtor has a family, but are the other realtors in his area leading with that information? And and the thing is, there are realtors, there are men that are realtors that have wives and children, but maybe that really isn't their happy spot, and they don't really like working with clients where they have kids and dogs and everything. Maybe they like working with professionals that are relocating, and everything is handled through the corporate office, right? So that's the thing. What is it?
What's your purpose?
Yeah. And that's what I find is that last little, like the Rubik's Cube thing that you click in and it makes sense to the designers when I talk with them in real life. We're not saying what's your Fred Burns only that no one else has. We're saying, what is the thing about you that makes you happy? Because that will make somebody else happy. And if I am, a person that's coming into an area looking to hire a realtor, and maybe I don't know anybody, I don't have a recommendation. If in this man's marketing, it talks about how, as a father who coaches the Little League teams, I know the best parks, I know the best schools, I know the best this and that and the other thing. Like, my brain, if I've got like 3 or 4 kids, I'm like, oh, maybe every other realtor is capable of doing that and helping me with those things, but he's telling me he's capable of helping me with that. And so I believe it more, right?
Well, and that's just it. And I think that's kind of what we nailed it down to, was that the reason why his clients resonated with him, it wasn't just that he had kids, it's that his focus was on ensuring that their family was going to be in the right home for them.
Right.
So he was working with both buyers and sellers, but in terms of the buyers in particular, he wanted to make sure that, first of all, he understood, all right, you've got kids, you've got soccer practice, you've got gymnastics, you've got piano lessons and all these things. So you have limited time. So he wanted to make sure that he eliminated any houses that he just didn't think were going to be the right fit. So he did a lot of extra work for them to make sure that when they did go out and view houses, it was very purposeful. Right. And then he made sure that those houses were going to be somewhere that he felt their family was going to be comfortable based on their family specific goals. So if the kids do play hockey, well, where are they playing hockey? We don't want you to be driving across town 5 times a week. Let's make sure that we're finding
these are
somewhere that's
great
closer.
Things, right?
And so that was why his clients were absolutely loving the experience, but the clients couldn't even put it into words necessarily. Right. But as we started breaking this down, that's how we started realizing those things. And like you said, he can now lead with that as a part of his marketing. And that's just it. Like, it has to come back to, how are you positioning yourself in the marketplace? I understand you may not necessarily have one thing that makes you unique, but you might also have, say, a checklist of 10 things that you do for every single client, and maybe you list those out as a part of your value. And it's quite possible that every other designer is doing the exact same thing.
But you're telling everybody.
Yes. Right?
Yes.
Like, one of my favorite commercials is a radio commercial where I live for windshield replacement. And they talk about, did you know that there's different types of material you can do for your windshield? And I'm thinking, I like to learn things. I'm like, I didn't know that. And I honestly can't remember all the details to the commercial, but they say, at this place, we only use this type of glass because it is the best in the industry and you're going to get all this about it. So I know when I go to get my windshield replaced, I'm either going to these guys or the next person I'm going to ask them, what glass are you using?
Right.
Because I heard there's different kinds of glass, so it's about educating people. If you are someone, for example, we've talked about, the interior designer, you don't necessarily these days need to be formally trained. I'm not saying that's the way to go by any means.
Right.
Trust me.
Whatever your path is.
Right. But a lot of people come into interior design from a bit of a different direction, and next thing they know, they've got this design business, and oh my goodness, I didn't go through all of the schooling for interior design. I didn't do the internship for 5 years. I didn't get registered and all this extra stuff that, they didn't do. So that's and to their prerogative. But if you are the designer who did, then you're complaining about all these people coming into the industry that don't have that because you worked so hard for yours. own that.
Right.
If that's a position you want to stand on, make it a point on your website, on your marketing material. Did you know, in order to be qualified or classified as an interior designer, you need to go through these steps. This is what I've done. And then I've been working in this business for the last 15, 20 years or whatever it is. Own those parts of it.
Right.
And I think that's about finding out what your value is. And then when you meet with the clients, make sure they remember who the heck you are. So give them a reason to remember it. That's where you have your chance to wow them. And I get where people are like, well, I'm not that unique, but doesn't mean you can't do some unique things. Just because everyone in the industry follows the same checklist when they get there, doesn't mean you can't do things just a little bit differently, because that's what's going to make you stand out from the last person that was in there.
And the thing is that it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a tiny thing. You know what? I mean, the truth is, it could be after a discovery call that you simply send a handwritten thank you note that said, I enjoyed getting to know you during our discovery call, like a discovery call how about a discovery call either way that results in an initial consultation appointment or doesn't result in an initial consultation appointment? One says, I enjoyed getting to know you and learning a little bit about your upcoming project, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 3. And the other is, I enjoyed getting to know you and a little bit about your upcoming project. And if you decide that you'd like to go ahead with the discovery call, I'd be happy to speak to you again about it or whatever. But the point is, if a potential client is calling 2 or 3 or 4 designers over a 3, 4, 5 week period as they make a decision whether or not to engage with a designer for their upcoming project. Maybe they're going to build a home, they're going to do a renovation, and they're doing that initial legwork, because I know that happens too. People will reach out to a designer, right, Shauna Lynn, like in September, but they're not going to break ground until March. But they're like, let me start to make some phone calls. Well, and they're not necessarily ready to make appointments. They don't want the consultation yet. It's not time yet. But how do you get them to remember you? And all the better if that note card is branded to you and your company and yada yada, and not your Hallmark thank you card, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point, because it's every step of the way. It's not just when you've gone to do the appointment. It's every step of the way. Maybe it's as simple as they mention something on the call. Like, for example, I love to do Tough Mudder events. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're crazy obstacle muddy races.
Doesn't surprise me one bit that you like to do those, Shauna Lynn.
So that comes up a conversation with someone. Maybe what they're going to do is maybe they find this really cool YouTube video of people doing some crazy obstacles in the mud, and they send it to me like, holy cow, I saw this video and I thought of you, thought you'd enjoy it. Right. Find something, or just send me a crazy cat video, because that's always everyone loves a crazy cat video, for the record. But maybe they said something in that phone call that resonates, and you're now sending them an article that you read. Or I had coffee, or actually drinks, with a friend of mine last week, and I mentioned how my dad has MS. It comes up in conversation. He already knew this, of course. Well, doesn't he send me an article the other day of a treatment I hadn't even heard of yet for the disease? And and that was just, wow, you were really listening to me. You heard me. Look, this is a really cool article. Even if I had already seen the article before, that's irrelevant. Right. It was still a really cool thing for him to do. He's already got my business. Like, he's a friend of mine, plus I give him business, so but doing things like that will help you to stand out. And I like to your point, it doesn't have to cost a ton of money, but you should find a way to wow them in some way. So one of the things that my company does is we have what we call our client care package. And we have one that we use for staging, and we have another one that we use for design. And they're used in slightly similar ways, but also very different ways. For the staging clients, we courier it to the clients before the consultation. Oh. And we teamed up with a local courier company. It cost me $7. Wow. $7. And these are paid consultations, right? $7 to get it out to them beforehand. So now when they're receiving this package ahead of time, it's got our branding on and everything. They're like, wow, this is a real staging company that's coming. Our agents love it because they feel like to their clients, it looks like they've splurged on the best of the best of the best, right? They're definitely like, they're getting them high quality here. And then in that client care package is all the stuff that I feel that I don't need to go over with them. It's cleaning lists. It's, maybe some testimonials and some statistics. It's, understanding the basics of how to live through, while your house is on the market. And then it also has some stuff for my vendors, you want some paint, go see Sherwin-Williams. You need moving boxes. Here's my moving company information. And it talks about our services as well. Gives them a bio of the stager that's coming to see them, tells them what they can expect in the visit. Really well laid out, and they get it beforehand. Now with my design clients, we don't send it out beforehand, but we do something similar where they get a bio, they get a little bit of information about the company, they get some information about our suppliers. They also get tip sheets on here's how to live through a renovation. Here's how to work with your designer. And I understand that a lot of people like to do these things in emails. I will tell you right now, I am the kind of person I would skim over that.
Yeah.
But if you physically handed me a package like that, all branded with your logo and everything, I'm going to read that thing cover to cover.
Wow.
Right? And everyone's going to be different, but you know how little it costs me to do that? I mean, you're talking a few dollars, a little bit of time to put it together initially, of course. But now here's the cool thing. They have this folder. So it's like one of those, twin pocket folders that we stick all these sheets in. Well, now guess what's going to happen when I give them paint chip samples? Where do you think that those paint chip samples are going to go? Right. And so maybe yours is in a folder. Maybe you create a custom binder for your clients to organize their own project, or it doesn't have to. And sure, that costs a little bit of money and a little bit of time, but it's making yourself memorable.
Well, and let's be real. It's not like we're going like WindowWorks. We're between the three salespeople. We could be going on 20 appointments a day, every day. Designers are not doing that. Basically, you've got 8 or 10 projects in a pipeline over the course of the year. You might have 40 or 50 projects if you're really busy. You could only so. I mean, even if it costs $10 a box, like what do we? You know what I mean? This isn't like breaking the bank. And this is the thing. This is such. To me, something like this is so much like that. The return on this is astronomical.
Huge.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And it's just now you glossed over. It took a little time in the beginning to put it together. Stop with that nonsense. Okay. Because I know it takes a little bit more than a little bit of time. Okay. But the thing is, this is one of those things, those tasks, those projects that if you do invest the time, and maybe it takes you a total of 2 or 3 hours in planning and then execution with having the materials run off, but you can have them then all made up and stacked in your studio. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like once you put in the initial time, then it's a little bit of time. You make an appointment, you put the address on the box and out to the carrier, the courier it goes to. But it's so funny because I was listening to a podcast the other day, an audiobook, and it was a live interactive presentation by audiobook. It was awesome. And the guy says to somebody in the crowd, he says, well, what he's asking him after a point in the break in the conversation in this presentation. I mean, he's like, let's review some of the goals that maybe you came up with yourself while you've been listening to the last hour of the presentation. And so he calls on people and he says to the one will raise their hand. He goes, what are you going to do now that you commit to do after listening to this? What are you going to do? She says, I'm going to redo my website. And he said, that's terrific. He goes, how much time will it take you to do that? She goes, 6 weeks. He goes, try 3 hours like this, right? And so she just like says, you can hear silence. And he goes, look, I understand why you just said 6 weeks. He said, but the truth is it will take you 3 hours. So if you say, well, first I'm going to call somebody and then I'm going to do that. And then the next week I'm going to follow up. He goes, and what he said was, pretend that this is the point. And this is what I love. He said, pretend that you just became aware of the most amazing breakthrough opportunity in your business that you could possibly imagine. But you were going to have to present to them in 3 days from now. He said, do you think you would have your website rebuilt and rebranded in 3 days? And, come on. The answer is yes. You stop the train and you go do it.
Yes.
And so, maybe you don't, stop your entire business train and do this box or any of these things. But don't put it on a shelf and think, I'll eventually do that. Because I love
Right.
these ideas, Shauna Lynn. These are just what we're, exactly what we're saying. There are ways to make yourself memorable that are not big, grandiose things that I'm not about to paint my hair pink. Like, so how else can I do it?
Sure. I mean, you got to do what's going to work for your company. So, I mean, LuAnn, you and I, for example, we run things a little bit differently. I am very structured. When I coach a client, I've got my little checklist that I'm going through, and I'm writing these notes down, and I'm going to do this follow-up report. And I've got a template for how I send my follow-up report every single time. And I record things in Evernote, right? So obviously, I'm also going to do something similar when it comes to how I treat my design clients and my staging clients.
Right.
So you have to do what's going to work for you. If you are that creative that just likes to run around rooms and just spout different things out, then you need to think of something that fits with that. Maybe it's a matter of you bring an orchid to every one of your clients. I don't know.
Right.
Like find something that's going to, we gave away microfiber cleaning cloths to all of our staging clients this year when they booked a consultation. And it wasn't about, book a consultation with us and you'll get this microfiber cloth. No one cares. But we showed up with it and we put a little card on it that has our favorite cleaning recipes using all natural ingredients. And it's wrapped around this little microfiber cloth that has our logo on it. And it was something we could just leave behind that they loved. Wow. We did that with maple syrup a couple of years ago because I'm Canadian and we love our maple syrup around here. And the city that I live in, we are literally known for our maple syrup. Like this is we have a maple syrup festival every year. That's how big it is. So I went to one of the local farmers and I teamed up with them, got a ton of bottles of maple syrup and gave them out to clients with our tags on them. And the farmer even said to me, he said, well, do you want me to leave my tags off? I said, no. I need everyone to know these are local. Right. And that they came from you and I want them coming back to you because you have the best maple syrup in town. Right. So now I'm giving this to every client at a consultation. They're seeing that I support local, that I'm a part of their own community. And subliminally, I just got all this message into them by just giving them a bottle of maple syrup.
It's so true. It's so true. I love these ideas. Because where our first example was the realtor friend who needed to figure out what was unique to the way he approached his real estate business, which is a total valid, let's go down that road. But these other examples are just beautiful, nice, memorable things that you can do if you haven't figured out your thing yet, right? So these are just things that are touch points. We talk about the client experience and what sets you apart. I think these are outstanding. I love them.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point. If you haven't figured out what your thing is, to use your term there, what you want to do is every time you work with a client, sit back and evaluate that postmortem. Always do a little bit of a check-in afterwards. What went well? What didn't go well? What was your favorite parts of it? What was your client's favorite parts of it? What were the things that really got your motor going, basically? Because that's going to start defining you. And I know from firsthand experience, and I think everyone can speak to this, when you first start your business, you think you might be a certain kind of entrepreneur, a certain kind of designer. And then as you get into things, you're like, you know what, this is actually the direction I want to go in. And you start steering yourself a little bit. So as you figure those things out, start really paying attention to them, because those are going to be the points that you can use then to really properly define yourself. Because I do think everyone does need to go through the exercise of who are you and what makes you unique or what makes you valuable. But you might not know definitively when you're first starting out, or what you think it is when you're first starting out. You might veer off and fork off in a couple of different directions before you actually land to where you are. So I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, sometimes you don't necessarily know exactly what that's going to be from the beginning, but then you can have these little touch points. But, and I can't stress this enough, you got to back it up.
Right.
You can't just be the fanfare, the fireworks, and all this fun, memorable stuff if you're not putting the right service behind it and the quality that these people are looking for, or the type of experience that these people are looking for, doesn't matter.
Well, that's the exact truth of it, because you can't be the person who never forgets to send a thank you or a touch point card, but you never return a phone call. I mean, hello. Right. You have to have everything locked down. So that is the number one thing. Look, if you're struggling with having your actual client experience, your client journey, your project execution systemized so that everything happens the same way every time for every client. If you're still stuck in that little space, deal with that first, and then as you develop that system, put these touch points in.
Yes.
But there is no point in having all the fun little feelies touch points if the actual working with you is not a pleasant, enjoyable experience, because it's contradictory. It's just a complete contradictory message. And what happens now is, you know what it is for me? This is a very dramatic example, okay? However, it's on purpose, okay?
Okay.
It's sort of like if you are a business that does all the fluff, but all the stuff that actually pertains to my order is chaotic and not streamlined and not a good time, right? Then that reminds me of the guy that brings you flowers every single week, but doesn't remember to say, "Good morning, sweetie. You look fabulous today." You know what I mean? Like, don't roll in with the flowers once a month when every day at breakfast you got your head in the newspaper and you grunt at me and you leave for work. Like, come on. You know what I mean? So then what happens is, now when you get the flowers, you're sort of like, take these flowers and you know what to do with them, right?
Well, exactly. And I mean, and if those systems are bogging you down, because I understand, we're all creatives as well, find a system that does work for you. That's the other part of it too, that if you're finding that you're trying to get these systems going, you don't quite have it nailed down yet, maybe you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Good point.
You need to adjust your system. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have systems. Do not misunderstand. I am 100%.
No permission to have no systems.
Right. But you have to find a system that works for you. So I'm very much systems and processes oriented. But if you look at my desk, it might seem a little chaotic to some people, in the sense that I have this shelf above me that has all these file folders and binders, because I am a at my fingertips kind of person. If I have to take more than 5 seconds to find something I'm looking for, I get frustrated. And so I've created all of my systems to support that. Right. And then I make sure I hire people that can work within those and complement them in certain ways. So if there's a part of the system that I'm like, listen, I'm not good at the follow through on this part of the system, I'm going to hire someone who will take care of that follow through.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So, but if you're finding that you're spending all this time, well, I was told I needed this system, so here's a system I'm implementing. It's taken me forever. So how am I ever going to get to the point where I can actually, start getting out there and marketing myself? And I'm digressing a little bit, I know, but I feel as though it was important to mention that if you're finding yourself bogged down by that system, creating that system part of it, find another way to do the system.
Right. Absolutely.
Be authentic to you, right? At the end of the day, it's not just because I said, Shauna Lynn said I had to do a system, that's not the whole point of it. But everything that you do should reflect your business in some way. So always thinking about what is your business, who are you, what do you actually stand for, and what do you want people to think of when they think of you. I have had referrals. This is my favorite thing, when I get referrals from people, and I'll say to them, well, who referred you? And the person who referred me has never hired me before.
Oh.
And that is one of the most amazing and biggest compliments I think that you can get, when someone's referring you and they've never worked with you, because everything they've seen about you, they just trust.
Right.
They just feel like, you're going to be good, so I'm not going to worry about this.
Right.
And so then they can recommend me to someone. That really means a lot to me.
That is something. Yeah. That's because they have been, that your marketing, everything has been touching them all throughout the process. And when they finally enter the marketplace, they're like, you're my person.
Right.
Because it's been hitting them. And you said, what do you want people to think of when they think of you? And that line reminds me of, I think it was the first time that Nicole Heimer of Curio Electro was on the podcast. And it was like a silver bullet line when she said this to me, because we say it all the time. You got to hear the same thing 15 different times, 20 different ways before you go, what a great idea. And you're like, dummy, I've been saying that. Or like somebody will say to me, I've told you that 20 times. But when she said this line, she said, if you're not sure who you are, what your business is, then say this to yourself. Oh, Sally Smith, interior designer, that's the designer that, or that's the interior design firm that. And she said, and start to just play with that sentence. What do you think people will say when they ask that question, when you ask that question of them? And then the other thing too is, I know that we've said it on Nicole's episodes before. If you really are struggling with what Shauna Lynn is saying, with this figuring out what, like with this gentleman, she helped him figure out that his focus was family and all the things he does in the process of being a realtor that actually not only helps the family find the location they need to be in, but the way he enables the family to do it efficiently because he understands their pain points is, she says, go ask your good clients.
Yes.
Just ask them.
Yes.
Why do you work with me? Why have you hired me 3 times? Why did you hired me once. We had I call it the autopsy. We had the debrief and the autopsy of the project. You related these positive sentiments. What was it? Because they'll tell you what it was. And it's often not the things that you think it is. And that is very powerful. It's funny because we recently did a exercise with Exciting Windows. And I am on the National Advisory Board for Exciting Windows. And it's basically a think tank mastermind for window treatment people. And I just love my Exciting Windows team and people and my pals there. And I'm always working with the owner of Exciting Windows about, how to talk about us. What do we brand? This and that and the other thing. And I said to him, and thankfully he was up for it. I said to him, when we have our next conference, which was in September in Chicago, I said, let me just do an exercise with all of the members of the group. I said, I want to get a big piece of paper, a big easel of paper, give me a magic marker, and I am going to just run this energetic, high fun exercise where I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask each one of them, what attracted you to Exciting Windows? Did you get that when you got here? And what do you love most about being a member of Exciting Windows? And it was outrageous. It was so much fun. And when it was all done, I just looked at him. I said, do we have any of this on our website? Right?
Yes.
Because it's like you ask your client, what do they like about working with you? And then you turn around and you write your copy on your About You page to reflect these things. These are what is important and resonating with your clients. So call it out. Let other people know that, right?
Oh, I know. I mean, I hear from real estate agents all the time that all real estate agents tout about, I give the best service. Well, everyone gives the best
That's
service,
like such a
right?
non-sentence. It's
such a non-sentence. So if your clients say, well, I really love the service, what about the service did you like? Well, I like how when I wasn't sure which rug to order, you decided to order me a sample of each one. And so I could bring them into the house and I could sit with them for a week and you didn't pressure me, whatever it is.
Right.
But if whatever solutions you're coming up with, really drill down with them. What exactly did you enjoy about our experience together?
Right. The other thing too is, of course, I'm reading a gabillion interior designers' websites every week in the course of doing the podcast, right? And one of the things that breaks my heart really is when I read an interior designer's, whether it's their homepage or their about page, and I absolutely come away and have not learned a single thing about the person.
Yes.
And you know what? I know that it's not intentional. I know that the thought is there, that I've put together a great About Me page or a home page. But the reality is that I would say, go read your About You page. And if you can substitute any name in place of yours in reading that page, and that whole page could be true, then you don't have an effective About You page. Do you agree?
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And it happens all the time. I swear to goodness, it happens all the time. Every single week. I read a page and I'm like, great. Moved furniture when you were 5, inspired by this, give good service, you deliver, it's like, to your point, you're the best, you give the best service. Tell me why. Tell me how. Tell me what is it. And think about this example that Shauna Lynn gave us with this realtor. If you were going to hire a realtor, and even if he was one of, 36 realtors on a website for, the umbrella of the realty company, if they have a bio page for each realtor, an About You page for each realtor, or he's his own independent firm, if that page said, Bill Smith, father of 3. I'm totally wouldn't write the copy this way, but you know what I'm saying? And Bill understands that, to your point, what you said earlier, that if you've got one child and if you're like our house was a softball house, right? If you're a softball house and all of your girls play softball, then you're going to want, to be near the teams in the fields and blah, blah, blah. Like the point is, if you tell me that, like, who cares about all the people that don't have softball kids? Because I'm going to say, even if all my kids play hockey, you get that matters to me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes. And I think, so this is, again, exactly what you're saying, though. Go back to the clients to find out what you should be putting into that about page then. Right? Because you want that about page to resonate. And if, like you said, you can just plug in any name in there and it can be pretty much anyone, then it means that you maybe don't even understand exactly what's bringing people to you, because it clearly wasn't your about page. No,
it's probably your portfolio or referral. This doesn't mean that you're dead in the water or you're never going to work again. But I would tell you too,
get listening those things for the about page,
right. But if anybody, all of you listening, go do an experiment. I'm telling you, go do an experiment. Just go on Instagram today, find 5 designers that you admire their work, go to their web pages, go to their About You pages, and you me if not 3 out of 5 could be interchangeable, the names. Like, it's the truth. I'm telling you, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
Well, and then going back to when you're asking your clients about what it is that they like about you, the other thing is first of all, you need to really listen. So don't just take out the parts that they're saying that you so there's I really liked your design style. All right, well, that's what you wanted to hear. Right. But maybe they also mentioned something else that you did that they really liked that you're like, oh, that's not really that important. Well, listen to that, though, because maybe it is important. Maybe it's something that you can kind of lean into. Again, going back to, I'm a systems and processes kind of person. And because of that, there's a different level of professionalism that my company brings to the table. And there are agents that we don't work well with sometimes because they would like someone who will just come by someone's house, fluff some pillows for them, and call their job done. There are other clients, though, that really want that structure to what we bring. Those are the ones we're going to work with. And the ones who don't like that, we're not going to bend to that. So we're not going to work that well together. So I've made a point of ensuring that everything that I put out about my company shows that we are structured and professional. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying we are structured and professional.
Right.
Sometimes you got to be a shower.
Right. Right.
You have to show them in some way. Right. So if you are, whimsical, then have whimsy across your webpage, if that's what you want to be. So listen to everything that your clients are saying and lean into the ones that you want to lean into. So like I said, for me, systems and processes and professionalism wasn't necessarily how I thought I was going to be known because, again, I'm this girl with the pink hair, So wasn't so. Once I started hearing that from people, like, wow, I just love the level of professionalism. I love that you had a system to this. I love that you came with this clipboard and you had all this information. I love that you sent me the client care package. So I started hearing what all that meant. I said, okay, well, that's something I can lean into because I enjoy that part of it too. And I'm thrilled that that's a part of my business. So we're going to lean into that a little bit more. Now, of course, if you're hearing something and you're like, this is not what I want my company to be.
Right. I don't want to be known for that. Whoa.
Right. So now what needs to change in order to fix that?
Right.
Forward,
and it's funny too, because I'm thinking of the interview I did last summer with Dane Austin. He's in Boston. His handle on Instagram is A Colorful Life. And I'm going to forget what he called it right here in the middle of the interview. But I don't remember if he called it the anchor piece, if he called it the focus. I feel like he has his own little name for it. But what I'm remembering in the conversation was that there is one piece for him in every room that is the piece, and whatever he calls it. And it might be sometimes the chandelier, sometimes it might be the artwork, sometimes it might be whatever, okay? So, but the thing about it is that I remember in reading his website, he tells the story how he loves to have that one amazing, colorful, outrageous, whatever I don't even remember the adjectives. I just remember that. And what it was interesting, because he told the story on his website somewhere, then when I looked at his portfolio, I looked for the piece.
Like,
you see what I'm saying? Like, we're not like, how many designers probably have something like this? I mean, it's not uncommon to build a room around a focal piece, right? He didn't invent the concept, right? But because he shared, because he shared it with us and he put it there in the public, and it let me into the inside of the way his brain works when he approaches a project, which by definition probably isn't unique. But he uniquely told me about it. And so then I appreciated it. And I was almost like on a Where's Waldo hunt on every one of his portfolios pictures, you know? And it where normally I just gloss over the portfolio pictures, honest to God. In doing what I do, I'm like, yeah, I know your work's pretty, whatever. Tell me about you. But I just, you know, these are the tiny, like you know what Kohlheimer calls it? The nooks and crannies. Where are you presenting your ideals, your brand, your imaging, your messaging in the nooks and crannies in your business?
Well, and what I love about that too, because what you were saying, you know, that's probably very similar to how most people's minds work in this industry. But he actually identified it.
That's what I'm saying.
To see. So what he did by doing that was peel back the curtain a little bit, and that's what your clients want to see. They love the behind the scenes stuff. Why do you think reality shows are what they are? They want to see the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So if you can break something down for them, I think it's easy for us to think, well, everyone just knows that. You know,
that's the thing, right? The rest of us don't know all that stuff. That's the thing. You guys all as designers, so you think, oh, what's the point of telling everybody that I anchor, you know, I start with my anchor piece. Like, you know, of course, it's Design 101. It's like, yeah, but you know what? Not all of us are designers, right? And the other thing too is it's sort of like if you, the same analogy could be anything. If you are a designer for aging in place, then when you have the portfolio piece, point out to me the specific thing that you put in there that is an aging in place item. Don't assume that I know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Exactly. And you can also relate that back to yourself and how you work. So for you, for example, LuAnn, you are a Windows person, right? Like you're all about the window coverings, and your room to you doesn't even start until you got the window coverings, you know? So you can say, you know, similar to how you open the drapes, I open this, you know, whatever it is. I love shelf styling, for example. Like that's my jam. Everyone's got their thing that like, I could style shelves all day and be incredibly happy. It's my thing. And I know other designers that are like, oh, please, can you take it all off my plate? Because I can't stand it. You know, but I can relate maybe how I do things, you know, just like when I'm styling a shelf, I got to have different variations of things, you know, and so I can relate that to how I'm running my business or something, you know, like I'm trying to speak off the cuff here. It wasn't something I had planned, but you know, you can figure out how there's something that's really cool about how your brain works to put something together and relate that then to the process and the experience you're going to give to your client. It's not just that I'm going to make their shelves look pretty. I'm talking about how everything that I do is like my shelf styling technique.
Right. This is the thing. It is literally not looking for something that is so big and loud, but just something that is real for you. And everybody has a real for you story. And think about, I mean, story is the whole connection to everybody. It's the story. It's what makes people remember you, is knowing your story. And your story isn't the list of schools that you've been to, unless there's something that happened there, you know?
Sure.
Like the story could be, I was a pre-med student. And then I remember there's a couple in Florida. Their firm name is a tough name, Moniomi or something like that.
Okay.
Monica and Moni and her husband. I'm forgetting the names, but they're an adorable couple. They are in Florida. I interviewed them a year or two ago, and they did meet in college, and it was sort of the story. You have to go back to the show and listen to it, but it was one was going to be something, one was going to be something else. But I think if I remember it right, I think he took the class because she was cute and he wanted to be in the class. And then he ended up becoming an architect or something because of it, right? And so now the college story is a story. Right?
Right.
And that's
Yes.
fun. And it makes it like you relate to that firm and you think, wow, these two, found a passion for a career. At the same time, they found a passion for themselves and each other. Like you just get bought in. It's like, okay, I want to know
Yes.
more about these kids,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
So having that story, yes, understanding what your story actually is. And like you said, your story may not be about where you went to school. And it's not even about the awards that you won. I'm not saying don't mention those. Of course, like
Sure.
that's a part of who you are and
Right.
who your business is, and that's going to sell things. But break down that story to the narrative that your clients really want to hear, and like I said, peel back the curtain if you can on it for sure. And then I can't even stress this enough. Don't be modest.
Right.
Sing it from the rooftops,
Yes.
like you're amazing. You are awesome. There is something that you are doing that is incredible. You might think that everyone else is doing it just as well, maybe even better than you. But you know what they say? In order to be an expert, you don't have to know more than everybody else. You just have to know more than the person you're trying to sell it to.
Right.
You know?
And you do, by the way.
Yeah.
If you've even designed 2 rooms, you already know more than probably the person you're talking to.
Right. So don't compare yourself to everybody else that's out there. Just who are you and what makes you special and unique and awesome. And like I said, if you can't figure out the unique part of it, then just own every part of what you do and make that a part of your value.
Right.
Like, you may not be unique, but I do all these awesome things.
Right. Right.
And don't be like, oh no, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. I think one of the ways to practice being able to be confident about talking about yourself, whether it's, to your clients at a networking event, on your website or whatever, is to honestly get comfortable taking compliments and give compliments freely. And that actually really helps to make it a lot easier to reflect a little bit more about what you love about yourself. Because I think we don't spend enough time with, really loving ourselves, but you have to do that. And so, when people give compliments like, oh, no, it was nothing. Like, oh, I love your hair. Oh, really? I didn't know. It looks terrible. You should see how it normally looks, Instead,
just thank you.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Aw,
I appreciate that.
you.
That makes me feel nice, whatever.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I think we're notorious for it. I mean, I'm in Canada. We're really bad at it. Like we're not supposed to say anything nice about ourselves. We're just, yeah. So I think that spend some time, giving yourself a little bit of self-love, and allowing other people to love you as well.
I love it. I love it, Shauna Lynn. You are amazing. I told you in the beginning, I knew it when I first met you, and you never let me down. I'm always impressed by you. I love the way you're so direct and think so clearly and really cut into the heart of all of these aspects of really trying to figure out, and help people run their businesses. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited for our upcoming collaborations to be announced.
Yes. Stay tuned. I know. I always love everything that you do, LuAnn. I love everything you're doing for the industry, everything that you stand for. It's always such an honor to talk to you as well.
Thank you. So pretty fabulous lady, right? Hashtag smart lady for sure. I liked it when Shauna explained if you are not sure what makes you memorable, that we need to be willing to go deeper when a client compliments us. For example, rather than simply accept, I love your service, Shauna says, ask, what is it about my service that you love? Okay? You see, this is so critical in attracting to you more of the same clients like them. And don't feel funny about it. Think about it. If you were sharing a compliment with somebody that you honestly just enjoyed working with and you said, I really love that. That was great. And they said to you, do you mind telling me what was great? You wouldn't feel bad. You wouldn't feel like, why are you asking me that? So flip it around and understand that when you have a nice situation, a positive outcome with a client, and they're in that moment of sharing their gratitude with you, don't be afraid to ask for the details. Remember, Nicole Heimer talks about our brand lives in the nitty gritty details, right? So just like Shauna Lynn said, she said, by nature, she's hyper organized and very detailed, okay? But when she started to hear that these were the things that her clients appreciated about her the most, that's when she understood that it was time to show this to her potential clients, to let her potential clients that really appreciated this sort of superpower too, that she had it. And she said, she didn't just say, hi, I'm super organized, you're going to love me. No, she implemented processes all throughout her business, all the little touch points, the welcome pack and the different things that she does, so that each time a client worked with her, they knew that at step 2, this would happen. At step 3, this would happen. At step 4, this was happening. And by that happening every time, her reputation grew as a well-organized, efficient business person that could be relied on to deliver the same level of quality in a very efficient, organized manner. You see, that's her superpower, that efficiency, that organization. You can hear it in her voice, right? She's like Vita. She reminds me of Vita. It's like I talk with these ladies and I feel like I just have to sit taller or something. It makes perfect sense though, doesn't it, right? The other fabulous tip from Shauna Lynn is to let the potential clients see the real you behind the curtain, right? She said, don't just tell people what you love, all right? Tell them something about why you love it, why it's important to you. Over the years, we've had examples of designers who have maybe come from a finance background. So they'll talk about how they bring that skill to their practice, right? And I remember Leslie Price was on the podcast, and she said that she was telling us how she explained that her mom was an artist and that she grew up in this and appreciating it and how it instilled in her a true love and a passion for art. And so what happens is, what does she do? She naturally talks about this and she talks about her mom's art. And then what happens after that? Consequently, she becomes very knowledgeable about art, but she gets known for understanding and being knowledgeable about art. And then what happens? Ultimately, she sells lots of original art in her projects. Now, just think about it. I happen to know for a fact that many designers have mentioned to me offhand that the art is sometimes the hardest thing to sell, because at that point people are out of money and they don't really understand the value. But meanwhile, Leslie explained in her episode how she sells art in almost every project, original art, and how sometimes she starts with being commissioned to help somebody find their art, and then it turns into a design project. So it really does illustrate so perfectly how something that's unique to Leslie, right? It might not be unique to every person in the world, but it is true and authentic and unique to her, that she loves art, she talks about it, she connects her clients with the story about her mother and her upbringing, and therefore it attracts people who also like art, understand the value of art, and are interested in purchasing art. So she doesn't have this problem of people running out of money when it comes time to art, because she's attracted them to her from the beginning. You seeing how it makes sense, right? All right. I hope you do. All right. Guess what? Next Tuesday. Guess what next Tuesday is? It is going to be the 500th episode of A Well-Designed Business. I am so excited. I am so grateful for you for being on this journey with me. And on Tuesday, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. In the meantime, I am going to ask you a huge favor, and I wonder if you'd do it for me. I think I've asked one time this year this favor, but I really haven't asked for it often. And I would just like to say, if you are learning from the show, if you are liking the show, you are enjoying what the guests are bringing to the table, and you have not yet left a written review for the show in iTunes or whichever platform that you listen to, would you do that for me today? Would you actually just say, that's it, I'm going to do it today? I have to say, my most recent review I just looked at is from Beth Clark, the president of the Portland, Oregon chapter of the IDS. And she wrote how within the first 5 minutes, something Mimi Goldsmith said helped her clarify for her something that she said, this is what she wrote, had been taking way too much headspace for her. How fantastic is that? That after all these years of listening to the show, I know Beth personally. Of course, I went to Portland, Oregon to her meeting with the IDS chapter out there this past November, but she had an aha moment. And what I really love is that Beth is a seasoned designer and Mimi's a baby designer. I mean, how awesome is that? So if you've had a moment like that, Would you mind sharing that in a review? Because I have to tell you, I truly appreciate the emails that you send me, and I get the feedback in the emails because it seems like you're much more inclined to send an email rather than leave the review. But A, the review is so valuable, but B, somebody like Mimi gets to see how much she has helped someone too. And how outstanding is that? All right. So the other thing is I'd love to meet you in person. So soon we'll be planning the 4th birthday party for the podcast. So I hope you're on my email list so that you get the invitation. To be on the list, go to LuAnnNiagara.com/goodies. And bonus, you'll get all and access to all the goodies that the guests have shared with us. Okay. Also, I'm going to be in Chicago for the Powerhouse Smarts Luxury Conference in the early February. And I'm going to be at the IWCE, the International Window Covering Expo, in Tampa in March. If you come to any of these, please introduce yourself to me. All right? Thank you so much. Thanks tons. Always. I really do appreciate your showing up. Now, go out and be amazing. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNiagara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.